Welcome to Business as a Magical Practice, where your business is the vehicle for your self-integration and soul evolution. My name is Sam Garcia, and I'm the founder of Dirty Alchemy Digital Marketing. And I'll be guiding you through how you can use your business as a spiritual practice and what magical businesses are doing to hit their goals and change the world. Together, we'll be relating the mystical to the world of business so that our work can unite spirit and matter, shadow and light, conscious and unconscious. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the final podcast episode of the year of 2022. So first of all, you guys, thank you so much for being here with me for the year, for spending these 12 months together. Or if you're brand new to the podcast, I welcome you here too. But there's so many of you who are consistently listening every week and reaching out every week. And it's just been so fun to deepen the relationship with you. Yeah, it's just been an absolute pleasure. I know for myself, 2022 has been an odd year and a lovely year. And in case you didn't see what the name of the episode is, we're really going to be talking about your essence and essentially make sure you do this before setting your 2023 goals, because it's going to make your manifestations come in faster, your goals much more potent, your magic much more potent. But we'll get into that in a second. I just wanted to do a little reflection on 2022 in terms of, wow, what a year. For myself, it's the year that we bought our dream property on Maui. That was a multi-year manifestation and a lot of waiting once for the perfect property to come up, because it was with things that are limited in number, like land on Maui. It can move a little bit slower than things that are abundant in quantity. It's also the year that I reconnected. There you go. Reconnected with dance, which was such a huge part of my life for decades, from very, very young up until I was 18. And so I guess not decades, but for 15 years. And then didn't do it for another 15 years, but I got back into dance this year and made a lot of friends through the process. And just looking back, being like, wow, I can't believe I didn't dance for so long. And it's really colored a lot of things in my life. And I haven't really talked about it much on the podcast other than the episode with Donna, but it's colored so much of what I'm going to be bringing into 2023 through Dirty Alchemy, through this podcast, and the importance of creating a life outside of your business, because so many women I know, so many CEOs I know are just obsessed with their business. And it's because they've disconnected with things that they're passionate about, or haven't found things that they're passionate about outside of their business. Not to shame being obsessed with your business. There's nothing wrong with being obsessed with your business, but we will actually cut off parts of ourselves because it's so easy and societally acceptable to be obsessed with our business and work all the time. So anyways, it's actually totally relevant to the episode. Thanks for allowing me to ramble. No, I'm kidding. So today we're going to be talking about your core essence, and really the importance of doing this now at the end of 2022 before you are setting your 2023 goals. And maybe you already have, but if you listened to last week's podcast episode, which was with Robin Langford of Wicked Veracity, and it was the full astrology for 2023. And one thing she said was that 2023 doesn't really start astrologically until January 22nd. So if you have not yet set your goals for 2023, that is actually astrologically aligned, and you have a lot of time to set your goals for the year if you're someone who's a goal setter like I am, and like many. So what you want to do before that, or even if you already have, I'm going to give you some guidance on how to use your essence, what we'll talk about today, to really make your goals even more aligned with your soul and make your manifestations come in easier. So we often set goals from ego or from shiny objects or programming. Even if we're conscious people, right? There's just, you kind of get in the flow of whatever you're seeing on social media or whoever you're surrounding yourself with. And you're kind of in this fish tank of that is what normal is, right? If you listen to a certain type of podcast, and that was a rooster, if you listen to a certain type of podcast or you follow very specific kinds of people on Instagram, for say, then you're most likely indoctrinating your brain and your conscious and subconscious mind with their thinking. So this is fine. This is normal. This is really how human brains work. We're super tribal and we are easily influenced by those around us. That's why it is actually important to be cutting out things like podcasts and like social media channels and even people in your life that if they can be toxic and detrimental to where you want to be switching out where the direction you want to be going in your life. So like I was saying, even if we're conscious people, we can find ourselves setting goals on some level that are not aligned with what we truly want and are on a soul level. So do you really care about having a 7-figure business or a 6-figure business or having a $50,000 launch or whatever it is? Or do you really want to feel safe and have financial security? Or do you really want to have 100,000 person following? Or do you really want to have meaningful relationships with clients that change their lives? Or do you really care about working out consistently and having a certain style of body or have your body look a certain way? Or do you just feel like you should because of what you're following and what's around you? And this is so relevant to right now because so many people, they won't set goals throughout the year and they'll really set most of their goals for the entire year at the beginning or the end of the year before at the beginning of the current year. So I just want you guys to be really, really aware that of the goals that you're setting, you will, if you've already set them, you do want to go through this with your essence in mind. So just to completely contradict myself, no, not to contradict myself, but I want to invite in also the paradox of you can totally go after what you want consciously, unconsciously, egoically, whatever it is. You really can make happen just about anything in this world, in this reality. And you just wanting, for the example of a 7-figure business, maybe it's not aligned with your essence and you don't actually care about it, but consciously you're like, oh, that's cool. You can absolutely set that goal and go for it. That's fine. But magic and manifestation becomes way easier when you get to the heart of what you want versus just having these fairly random, societally accepted or programmed goals. So this is where we'll be focusing on today, which is around discovering your essence. I'm going to make this a really simple process. There are full-on books and courses and all these things around discovering your essence. But just to do the quick and dirty version, since I know a lot of people are chomping at the bit of setting goals, I wanted to take you through a few different things. So how I think of essence is, some people call them values, some people call it their authentic nature, or however you want to view it. But for me, when I'm saying essence, I'm talking about you on a soul level, what you truly want and what are your core values. So we're going to be looking at 5 different ways that we can do this today. And if you're driving or whatever, or you're cleaning, this will be in the show notes. So don't feel like you need to stop the recording, the podcast, and jump into it, though you totally can. I also invite you to do this as we go. But the first area that you want to look at for actually discovering your essence, and maybe you already know what it is, but spending some time on it is perfect. The first area you want to look is looking at your childhood. So if you can remember way, way back when you were a kid and you felt free and you felt like your little self, what were you like pre-programming? What were you interested in pre-programming? So an example for myself is I was incredibly interested in dance. I did it all the time. I took so many classes, and I was also interested in art. I remember being close with certain friends and spending a lot of time alone at home and being incredibly creative. So there are all these things I remember about being a child, of how I spent my time and what I enjoyed doing. So achieving this goal, we're going to call it a goal, me manifesting a situation where dance was possible in my present day life to at the professional level that I wanted to, like that was a big manifestation to me. And if I look back, looking at childhood, I should have known that it would be something that was so meaningful because it was so much a part of my upbringing. So start, and this is where you can journal about, what were you like as a child? What were you interested in? And are there any things that you want to bring back? So the next thing is to look at your passions. So this is where, have you had these hit on the head passionate awakenings? Because there's, on the one side, there's things that we're passionate about as children, but there's also things that we might not have been awakened to until later in life. So an example for me would be environmental action. There was a recycling club in high school. I remember it, and I had zero interest. It was like, I can only kind of remember it because my focus was in completely different areas. It had no interest to me. I did grow up like spending a lot of time in nature, but in terms of environmental action, I really had zero interest. It wasn't like this childhood like inkling. But then I had this huge breakthrough when I was 18 of having this experience in college and being invited to this college club that was doing local food, bringing local foods into the cafeterias. And it just really sparked this huge thing within me of like just so much passion around it. And it almost came out of nowhere. It was just births later in life. So where were these hit on the head passionate awakenings for you? And like list them out in your life. So the third area that you want to look at is obsessions. And I actually think of this as different than passions. They're just different in my mind, where obsessions are these roads that you keep going down, or you just can't stop yourself from going into. So what are the areas of your life or the topics that you find yourself Googling over and over and over again? It's not just like a one-time rabbit hole, but you just keep on coming back to it. So for me, health is one area like that I always go down of over and over, year after year. Health is just this area of life that is so interesting to me. And then another one for me is money. Like I love business and money. I think it's so interesting, the whole investing thing. I love learning about it. I love hearing about different ways that people are making money and doing business. So that's this thing that keeps on coming back and coming back and coming back. And it's not out of this, I mean, at one point it absolutely, years ago, it was from a place of I need to survive. Really quick, I wanted to let you know that if you are stressed out about sales pages, or if you just want to make your copywriting easier so your next launch can be more in flow, I am inviting you to download my guide, The 5 Secrets of a Spellbinding Sales Page, that gets your clients sold on your offer fast. This is my 5-step formula to writing a sales page that makes your audience feel seen, heard, and felt by you, so they feel called from deep within their soul to sign up for your offer. You can get yours for only $25 at the link in the show notes, or by going to thedirtyalchemy.com/spell. Okay, back to the episode. So even when I wanted to learn about money because I needed to make money, even after that point where we're in a comfortable spot with the business, with our personal income, and it's still an area that I love learning about, I love connecting in with. So, and just to be clear, through these different areas, what you'll want to do is write out all your answers to it, whether that's topics, whether that's higher level things, really specific things, and then we'll be going back through at the end, which I'll guide you through. Okay, so the fourth area that you want to go through is look at your energy expenditure. So where do you spend your money? Where do you spend your time currently or in the past? So this can be something that, I mean, if you spend a lot of money on food or on online courses or on rent, like where's the money actually going? And then also with time, looking at your schedule, Do you spend a ton of time on your business or with your kids or with your friends? How do you spend your free time? How would you prefer to be spending your money? How would you love to be spending your time? That can also be an option if you're in certain areas. And this can highlight some unconscious values. So for example, you spend a ton of money going out to drinks with friends, which highlights your value of relationship and connection, but your money is going towards alcohol ultimately. And you actually want to connect in a more meaningful way than drunken conversations you hardly remember at bars. So just because you're spending your time and your money in certain ways right now doesn't necessarily mean it's what you would consider your values, but it's definitely highlighting some unconscious values. And then our fifth and final area we want to look at is our blueprints. So this is totally optional, but if you're also into astrology and human design like I am, then it's really fun to look at your chart or charts also in human design. So look at your charts and see what it points to in terms of what your values could be. So for example, for me, my sun is Virgo, which, okay, that actually supports a value of mine, which is health. My moon is Cancer, which I've identified that one of my parts of my essence, a part to my value is comfort. Like that's something that I deeply desire. And then my rising sign is Gemini. So a big piece of my essence is spiritual connection or connection with other people, connection with myself. And then as a manifester in human design, we're supposed to be always going towards peace, or supposedly if you're living your design, you're at a state of peace. So there's this element of peace and freedom and innovation that comes in through my human design. So that's the fifth area you want to look at. So go through those 5 areas and write down all of your answers, all of those micro, macro things, high level and specifics from childhood, from your passions, from your obsessions, from your energy expenditure, and then your blueprints. And list all of those out high level. And then you want to go through and start connecting in themes. So this is absolutely a time when you can be like, well, fuck, I've not been living in alignment with what I would consciously say are my values. I'm working all the time when I say my number one value is my family or whatever it is. But you also want to see themes of things that are a part of your essence. So for me, like having gone through this process, I've like limited down to 4 kind of intangibles, but they feel very significant in my body. And that is freedom is a big one. It motivates my business. It motivates how I want to spend my time. It motivates a lot of my decisions. So freedom, comfort, as I already said, is actually a big part of my essence, and this desire for creating a home and where money goes to and how I want to spend my time and how I even want to dress myself. There's this element of comfort, or how I want to even treat myself, right? Element of comfort. And then third main one is connection. And as I said, it's this connection to spirit, connection to myself, connection to those around me. So those were the things that came through for me of like these beautiful areas that I can filter a lot of my goals through and filter my bigger decisions in life through. Is it supported by things that are a part of my essence? So go through and go do that. So find the themes first. And then if there are specific words or even feelings or values, then go through and do that. There are tons of lists of values on the internet. If you're having a hard time with this, there's like lists of hundreds of words that are considered values, which is so interesting. It's actually a really fun process to go through, because you can be like, oh, everyone's value is connection and freedom, of course. And then you look at these hundreds of values that other people would pick, and you're like, fuck, like, wow, we are so different. We're just kind of in our head assuming that everyone is like us, which is just not true. Okay. So if you have already made your 2023 goals, take them through your essence. Like if your goal is to make a certain amount of money, is that actually a goal of yours with your essence? Does the number even matter? It could totally matter to you. But if it's just something because you want to be aligned with your peers, then maybe it's not. Because let's be honest, we can justify anything. Like you can argue for or against anything, right? That's why there's like debate teams. Or maybe like with your journaling process, you've noticed this. So this is really where you want to slow down and be really, really honest with yourself. Like, do you really care about this goal? Because as you start doing specific rituals and magical spells or even manifestation work, if you haven't gotten drilled down to what you truly, truly want from your essence, it's going to be a slower process, or you're going to get the thing and not actually care about it and be so let down that you didn't get what you wanted, even though you thought you wanted it. So this work is really important. So does this goal truly align with my essence? And from this space, if you haven't done your 2023 goals, starting with your essence, you can start to really pull out what goals can look like. And maybe we've talked before on the podcast, human design, there's a concept of being a specific manifestor or a non-specific manifestor, not the energy type of manifestor, but there's like the arrows you point, the 4 arrows on your chart. And I think like the bottom left one, if it points right or left, will determine if you're supposed to be super specific in your goal making or really leave it open to interpretation. So I'm a non-specific manifestor. So it's actually good for me to be like, I want to have a business that feels abundant and leads me to more peace. That's actually a really aligned goal, something like that. Where someone else, if they're a specific manifestor, then it's like, I want to make $11,000 in January through selling 5 programs, or I want to have a 2-bedroom house, this color with these, like blah, blah, blah. Like very specific goals is actually aligned with their design. So that's an interesting thing to think about when setting goals, of course, as well. And then one final piece before we go for the day is you want to ask yourself, is this desire a trauma response? Is this thing that I'm saying is a part of my essence and my true needs? Is this a trauma response? And I was trying to find a specific quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes's Women Who Run with the Wolves, which is a great book. And I read it, I don't know, I read it when I was a teenager. So then I read it again in my early 20s. And I remember this one part where she talks about how when specific animals or groups of people are mistreated or oppressed in a certain way, it is natural that we want to swing in the opposite direction. And the example she was giving was around women's sexuality, where women have been so oppressed sexually to have so much shame and suppression of their sexuality that it is so normal for like women in their 20s or like whatever, once they get out of that oppression, to be incredibly promiscuous, and that being this pendulum swing to kind of balance out. And then they're like kind of come back to the center point. And then another example was a client. I have a client who like last year said she couldn't live in a place that was too far from a Gucci. Like she wanted to live close to a Gucci, which I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then 6 months later, she had a total turnaround and was like, oh, I don't care about that at all. It was just like this thing of not having any money, then suddenly having a ton of money, and like being around a Gucci and like buying all these luxury goods was incredibly important to me. For like a year, like a 1-year period out of her life. And like, what if she had made a decision, like an actual real estate buying decision based on whether or not it was close to a Gucci? I find that so funny. So you being clear, like, is this desire that I'm saying, is this a trauma response? And I mean, let me also say there's no shame. There's no shame around sexuality or money around here. Anyone can truly want what they truly want or want what they want. It's just for yourself. Things become a lot cleaner energetically. And I'm using the wrong word here because I don't want to like promote purity culture. Things just get a lot easier when you get to the core of what you want, instead of making these big goals out of a trauma response or out of these ego. When you can actually drill down into your essence and make these decisions from there, things become a lot more effortless. So happy end of 2022, everyone. It was so great to be with you this year. I'm so excited for 2023. If you have already written your goals, please send them. I would love to see what your goals are. If you have any big wins from 2022, please share. I would love to hear about it. You can find us at The Dirty Alchemy on Instagram, and we're at thedirtyalchemy.com. And happy holidays.